and no Patena Port. The summer transfer window is reaching a critical stage, and Arsenal appear to be moving with real ambition. Today we have two huge stories involving some of the biggest names in world football. One concerns Newcastle United captain Bruno Guimarães, while the other involves Real Madrid superstar Vinícius Jr. Both stories have generated enormous discussion among Arsenal supporters, and we'll examine everything currently being reported, what it could mean for Mikel Arteta's plans, and how realistic these moves actually are. If you love Arsenal as much as we do, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's dive straight into today's massive Arsenal news. Come on, you Gunners, let's begin with the player who could completely transform Arsenal's midfield. For several seasons, Arsenal have steadily built one of the strongest squads in European football. They have strengthened the defence, added creativity in midfield, and improved attacking depth. Yet Arteta has repeatedly emphasised that every successful team needs leaders capable of controlling matches under pressure. That is exactly why Bruno Guimarães continues to attract so much attention. Reports suggest Arsenal have intensified their pursuit of the Newcastle United captain, with claims that multiple offers worth more than £70 million have been made. While the exact details of negotiations remain unconfirmed by the clubs, the consistent message from several reports is that Arsenal admire Bruno enormously and view him as one of Europe's elite midfielders. If these reports are accurate, Arsenal's interest is no longer simply exploratory. It represents a serious attempt to strengthen one of the most important areas of the pitch before the new season begins. Why is Bruno considered such a perfect fit? The answer becomes clear every time he steps onto the field. Bruno is not simply a defensive midfielder, he is not only a playmaker. He combines both qualities in one complete package. He breaks up attacks, wins possession, dictates the tempo, delivers progressive passes, creates chances, and contributes goals. Above all, he thrives under pressure and consistently performs in high-intensity matches. These are exactly the characteristics Arteta values in his squad. Modern football demands midfielders capable of defending aggressively while remaining composed in possession. Bruno has demonstrated those qualities throughout his Premier League career. Whenever Newcastle face the league's strongest teams, Bruno rarely disappears. Instead, he often becomes the heartbeat of Eddie Howe's side, setting the rhythm and inspiring those around him. It is easy to understand why Arsenal's recruitment team would admire those qualities. Imagine a midfield built around Martin Ødegaard's creativity, Declan Rice's athleticism, and Bruno Guimarães' balance between defence and attack. On paper, it would rank among the strongest midfield combinations in Europe. That possibility alone explains why Arsenal supporters have become increasingly excited whenever Bruno's name appears in transfer headlines. However, excitement alone does not complete transfers. Newcastle remain determined to retain one of their most influential players. Since arriving from Lyon, Bruno has evolved into a leader on and off the pitch. He wears the captain's armband, commands respect inside the dressing room, and represents the competitive identity Newcastle are trying to build. Allowing such a player to leave would be an enormous decision. That is why negotiations, if they are taking place, would almost certainly be complex. Newcastle are under no immediate obligation to sell. They know Bruno's importance, they know replacing him would be extremely difficult, and they understand that losing their captain just before the new campaign could significantly weaken the squad. From Arsenal's perspective, though, opportunities to sign world-class midfielders rarely come around. Elite players become available only under exceptional circumstances. If Arsenal truly believe Bruno can elevate the team to another level, investing heavily may be viewed as a worthwhile long-term decision rather than an expensive gamble. Another reason these reports have gained momentum is the suggestion that personal terms would not be a major obstacle if the clubs reach an agreement. It is important to stress that until officially confirmed, such claims remain part of ongoing transfer speculation. Nevertheless, if a player is genuinely open to joining Arsenal, it naturally increases optimism among supporters. For any transfer of this magnitude, there are usually three major hurdles. First, convincing the player. Second, agreeing a transfer fee. third, finalising the contract structure. Reports indicate Arsenal may have made progress on the first aspect, but the second remains the biggest challenge. A fee exceeding £70 million would represent one of the club's largest investments. That demonstrates just how highly Bruno is rated within football circles. Arsenal have shown in recent years that they are prepared to spend significantly when they identify a player who perfectly matches Arteta's long-term project. Declan Rice is proof of that philosophy. Rather than signing multiple average players, Arsenal have increasingly targeted footballers capable of immediately improving the starting 11. Bruno fits that profile perfectly. He is entering the prime years of his career. He already understands the Premier League, he possesses leadership qualities, he has experience in European competition, and perhaps most importantly, he plays with the intensity Arteta demands every single week. For Arsenal supporters, these developments make the coming days incredibly important. Will Newcastle stand firm? Will Arsenal return with an improved proposal? Could negotiations accelerate before the opening weekend? At this stage, there are still many unanswered questions, but one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Arsenal are continuing to operate with ambition. Rather than settling for incremental improvements, the club appears determined to compete for football's biggest prizes by targeting players capable of making an immediate impact. And if Bruno Guimarães eventually walks out wearing the famous red and white shirt, it could become one of the defining transfers of the summer. Stay tuned, because the next part dives deeper into Newcastle's position, why this deal is proving so difficult, the tactical impact Bruno could have at Arsenal, and what this could mean for the Gunners' Premier League title ambitions. The Bruno Guimarães saga intensifies as the transfer window enters one of its most decisive periods. Every major development surrounding Bruno Guimarães is being watched closely by Arsenal supporters. The Brazilian midfielder is not just another name on the club's shortlist. According to reports, he is viewed as one of the players capable of helping Arsenal take the final step from title contenders to champions. But signing a player of Bruno's quality is never straightforward. For Newcastle United, this is about far more than money. This is about protecting the core of their project. Since arriving in England, Bruno has become one of the symbols of Newcastle's transformation. His performances have earned admiration across the Premier League, and his leadership has made him a central figure both on and off the pitch. Losing a captain with those qualities just before the start of a new season would be a significant setback. That explains why negotiations, if ongoing, are expected to be extremely demanding. Newcastle are in a stronger financial position than they were several years ago. They are not a club that needs to sell their best players simply to balance the books. Instead, they have the ability to reject offers that they believe fall below the player's true value. From Arsenal's perspective, that creates a major challenge. Every new bid would need to convince Newcastle that selling their captain is worth the risk, and replacing Bruno would not be easy. Finding another midfielder who combines technical brilliance, defensive awareness, leadership, and Premier League experience is incredibly difficult. Even if Newcastle accepted a huge offer, they would immediately face pressure to reinvest wisely before the transfer window closes. Meanwhile, Arsenal's recruitment team appears to have identified Bruno as one of the safest elite investments available. Why? Because he already understands English football. There would be no long adaptation period, no need to learn a new language, no uncertainty about whether he can handle the physical demands of the Premier League. He has already proven himself against the strongest opponents, week after week, season after season. That reliability is priceless. Arteta has consistently spoken about signing players with the mentality to compete every 3 days across multiple competitions. The Champions League demands experience. The Premier League demands consistency. Domestic cup competitions require squad depth. Bruno offers all three. Now imagine Arsenal lining up in one of Arteta's preferred systems. David Raya in goal, a settled back four, Declan Rice protecting the defence, Martin Ødegaard orchestrating attacks, and Bruno Guimarães controlling the flow of the game alongside them. Suddenly, Arsenal would possess a midfield capable of dominating possession while remaining physically strong enough to compete against any opponent in Europe. One of Bruno's greatest strengths is his intelligence. He rarely rushes decisions. He knows when to slow the tempo, He knows when to accelerate attacks, he knows when to press aggressively, and perhaps most importantly, he understands how to remain calm during the biggest moments. Championship winning teams are often built around players who make everyone around them better. That is exactly the reputation Bruno Guimarães has earned throughout his career. The statistics tell part of the story. Successful tackles, progressive passes, ball recoveries, key passes, distance covered. But numbers alone can never fully capture the influence he has on a football match. Watch Newcastle United for just a few minutes, and one thing becomes obvious. Everything seems to flow through Bruno. When Newcastle are under pressure, his teammates look for him. When they need composure, they trust him. When they need leadership, he delivers. Those qualities cannot always be measured. They are felt across the entire team. That is why Arsenal supporters have become increasingly excited by the latest transfer reports. But excitement must always be balanced with reality. Negotiations involving elite players are rarely straightforward. A deal that appears close today can become complicated tomorrow. There are transfer fees to negotiate, performance-related bonuses, payment instalments, contract clauses, image rights, and countless financial details. Every single element matters. That is why supporters should remain patient while discussions continue behind closed doors. Arsenal have shown in recent transfer windows that they are willing to be patient and disciplined. The club will not rush into an agreement that could damage its long-term financial stability. Instead, Mikel Arteta and the recruitment team carefully evaluate whether every signing truly fits the club's long-term vision. If Bruno Guimarães is genuinely viewed as one of the final pieces of Arsenal's title-winning puzzle, the Gunners could continue pushing until the final days of the transfer window. There is another major factor to consider: competition. Whenever a midfielder of Bruno's quality becomes available, Europe's biggest clubs inevitably take notice. Even if Arsenal are currently among the strongest contenders, the transfer market can change in an instant. A new bidder, an improved contract offer, or a sudden change in circumstances. Any of these could reshape negotiations overnight. That is why Arsenal will likely want clarity as soon as possible. The sooner a decision is made, the sooner Arteta can finalise preparations for the new Premier League campaign. For Arsenal supporters, every update now feels significant. Every report, every journalist update, every training session, every press conference, everyone is searching for the next clue. Will Newcastle United stand firm? Will Arsenal return with an improved offer? Could this become one of the biggest Premier League transfers of the summer? Those answers may arrive sooner than many expect. But while the Bruno Guimarães saga continues to dominate the headlines, another rumour is beginning to capture the football world's attention. And this one is even more astonishing. It involves one of the biggest superstars in world football, a player recognised across every continent, a player who has dazzled fans with Real Madrid. And according to recent reports, Arsenal have identified him as their dream signing for the left wing. Yes, the conversation now turns to Vinícius Jr. If those reports contain even a grain of truth, this could become one of the most extraordinary transfer stories football has seen in years. Coming up in part 3, Arsenal's sensational reported interest in Vinícius Jr, Real Madrid's valuation, the enormous financial obstacles, Mikel Arteta's reported admiration for the Brazilian superstar, and whether this blockbuster move has any realistic chance of becoming reality. The final verdict: what happens next for Arsenal? As we reach the end of today's breaking news, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Arsenal are thinking bigger than ever before. The days when the club simply hoped to qualify for the Champions League are gone. The objective now is crystal clear: win the Premier League, compete for the UEFA Champions League, build a squad capable of challenging the very best clubs in world football. That ambition is exactly why names like Bruno Guimarães and Vinícius Jr continue to dominate the headlines. But as exciting as these stories are, it is important to separate confirmed information from ongoing speculation. At the time of this video, neither Arsenal nor the clubs involved have officially confirmed these transfers. Negotiations and reports continue to emerge from multiple sources, and supporters should wait for official announcements before considering any deal completed. That said, let's imagine for a moment what Arsenal could look like if even one of these signings became reality. Bruno Guimarães would bring leadership, he would bring composure, he would bring the experience of controlling the biggest Premier League matches. Alongside Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard, Arsenal could possess one of Europe's strongest midfields. Now imagine adding Vinícius Jr to that squad. One of the fastest attackers in world football, a player capable of deciding matches with a single run, a winger defenders fear every time he receives possession. Suddenly, Arsenal's attack would reach another level entirely. Opponents would struggle to cope with the pace, creativity and movement across the front line. Arteta has spent years building this team piece by piece. Every transfer window has added another important component. The defence became stronger, the midfield became more balanced, the squad became deeper. Now Arsenal appear to be searching for players who can make the difference in the biggest moments. That is exactly what separates title challengers from champions. The Premier League has become more competitive than ever. Every point matters, every injury matters, every signing matters. Margins are incredibly small. Sometimes one elite player changes everything. Supporters know that, the coaching staff know that, and the Arsenal board certainly know that. The coming days could therefore be crucial. Will Newcastle soften their position? Will Arsenal continue pushing for Bruno? Will Real Madrid immediately dismiss interest in Vinícius? Or will another unexpected twist completely change the story? That is why the transfer window is so fascinating. Nothing is guaranteed until contracts are signed. We've seen dramatic deals collapse at the final moment. We've also seen transfers that nobody expected become reality overnight. So while excitement continues to grow, patience remains essential. One reliable update can completely reshape the situation. Until then, Arsenal supporters around the world will continue refreshing their phones, following trusted journalists and waiting for the next major breakthrough. Whatever happens, one message is already clear. Arsenal are sending a signal to Europe. They are not satisfied with simply competing. They want to dominate. They want to build a squad capable of fighting for every major trophy available. Whether Bruno Guimarães arrives, whether Vinícius Jr becomes a realistic target, or whether Arsenal surprise everyone with another elite signing. This promises to be one of the most exciting transfer windows in recent club history, and here on Arsenal Daily Talk we'll continue bringing you every major development, every reliable update, every negotiation and every breaking story as soon as it happens. So if you don't want to miss the next big Arsenal announcement, make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications and become part of our growing Arsenal family. Now it's your turn, Gunners. Would you rather Arsenal sign Bruno Guimarães, Vinícius Jr, or do you think the club should target someone else entirely? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read as many of them as I can, and I'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, enjoy your football, and as always, come on you Gunners.